Hello again, everybody, and welcome into the Shelby County High School Football Show alongside Andrew Simonson. I am Alec Etheredge, and we've got another big week of high school football action set to take place this Friday night, and we're down, Andrew, to the final 2 weeks of region play now, so we're getting to that point in the year where a lot of these teams, there's a lot at stake at this point in the season with those 2 weeks left. We saw some of those big games last week as teams continue to fight for their playoff lives, looking to make the postseason this year. Same for region championships. We've still got Thompson and Helena battling for region titles this year as well. So there's plenty to get to on this week's show. We've got 12 total matchups taking place this week, and just about all 12 going to have some kind of postseason implication on the line there with the final 2 weeks of region play here. But when you look back at last week, a lot took place. So let's give a quick rundown of that. And it started on Thursday night. Pelham falls to Benjamin Russell on the road in a Thursday night game. Just didn't have enough offensive firepower there in the second half of that game. That ends up being a big loss because that could be something that does ultimately keep them out of the playoffs. Still a chance to get into the postseason. We'll talk about that a little bit later on here in the show. Shelby County Wildcats, though, they come up with a big win, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on as well, but that's a team that is able to take down Selma in a tight football game, but now a chance that they could get home field advantage in the postseason as well. So a big win for the Wildcats. Briarwood won a little bit sloppy at times, but it's a 38-0 shutout against Calera last week. Thompson, they dominate a 60-point win against Oak Mountain. Still very much alive to win the region championship and can actually close that out this week, as can the Helena Huskies coming off of a bye week last week. And as for the Spain Park Jaguars, a game that you saw, Andrew, they pick up a big win as well over Chelsea. Tighter than it probably should have been for a while, but they keep their playoff hopes alive in that one as well. And Vincent now back-to-back wins after those 2 straight losses. Same situation. Similar situation to what we're going to see with a lot of these teams, and that's that the 2, 3, and 4 seeds still very much alive right now in that region for the Vincent Yellow Jackets in the 2A classification. So, Andrew, last week really one of those weeks that not a ton of close games. Weren't a ton of close games, but some big wins for several teams. When you look back at last week and the importance that we now have coming up each and every week the rest of the way, what is it that stood out to you a week ago and is something that could be something that bodes well for a lot of these teams moving forward too?
I think what boded the best for me was Shelby County in the fight that they showed in the close game situation. It was ultimately the defense that came up, but it was the individual plays within the defense that stood out. 3 interceptions, big sack late. It was just a really good performance from them, and then the offense wasn't just able to just ride that wave. They stepped up to the moment, got the touchdowns that they needed to in order to secure that win. I thought that even though Selma was a team that they were expected to beat, I thought the way they did that was a pretty big statement and something that they could really parlay into the future, especially if they're able to get the 3 seed within that region.
Yeah, that's for Shelby County to be able to pick up that win, like you just said, their seeding's still on the line. And even though they've struggled this season, the final 3 seeds in this region all have struggled this year. So a chance for the Wildcats, if they can pick up a win this week, there's a good chance in their final region game that they could end up with a home playoff football game despite just 2 wins to this point in the season. So that one of many big games taking place this Friday night. It's going to be a busy, busy week, and we've got some big matchups, and we've got 2 teams who can win a region championship at the end of the night on Friday night. Going to need a little bit of help, but the Helena Huskies, they can win a region title this week if they pick up a win, and Briarwood right here behind us takes down Benjamin Russell. And then for the Thompson Warriors, if they're able to pick up a win as well, going to have a chance to walk away and clinch the region championship at the end of the night, even ahead of that big matchup against Hoover a week later. So plenty to touch on. Every game that we talk about pretty much going to have playoff implications on the line in those matchups. We're going to talk about all of those games on this week's show. Our game of the week, though, going to take place right here at Briarwood Christian School as the Lions play host to Benjamin Russell in a very key matchup here when it comes to seeding in this region. Briarwood wins this. They've got Homewood next week, a great chance for the Lions to pick up that 2 seed out of this region. If Benjamin Russell wins this week, a good chance that they're going to have that opportunity next week as well. So plenty on the line, plenty to talk about. We've got our SCR Stars of the Week segment at the end of the show, so make sure you stay tuned in throughout. But we're going to break them all down right now, and we're going to start with our game of the week right here at Briarwood Christian School. Well, Andrew, the Briarwood Lions going to enter this game of the week against Benjamin Russell off of a 38-0 shutout victory against Calera on the road a week ago, and a game that kind of started a little bit bizarre, something that I've never seen before. I don't know if you've ever seen it in your time covering sports, but Briarwood starts that game with 2 consecutive safeties defensively as they forced 2 Calera safeties to start that game, take a 4-0 lead. Ultimately, that was just the beginning as they go on to win that one 38-0. Wasn't the prettiest performance from Briarwood even in that win, but they continued to build that confidence and momentum heading into what we've been talking about, the big 2-week stretch for them. These next 2 weeks extremely key, and it starts this week. Our game of the week against Benjamin Russell carries into next week against Homewood and what's become a pretty good little rivalry battle there between those 2 teams. But we got to start with this one first. They've got to get through this one. That 2 seed very much up for grabs in this region, technically still a region championship up for grabs as well, with Helena looking to close that out possibly this week. But Benjamin Russell still a chance to do that if they can beat Briarwood this week and then Helena next week. So a lot on the line for both of these teams, and I think they both know it going into this matchup. But right now you've got Helena sitting undefeated in region play, and then you've got Briarwood, Homewood, and Benjamin Russell all sitting at 3-1 in that tie for second place right now, and it's all going to kind of get jumbled up, thrown into a hat, mixed up, and then we're going to pick out a name here over the next couple of weeks because there's a chance that all of these teams kind of cross over and beat each other the next 2 weeks. But we start with this one right now, and this is a chance for Briarwood to really make a statement and show that they've been making those consistent improvements throughout the season. The offense gotten better, the defense much better than it was a year ago. When you look at this game, Andrew, you've got a team in Briarwood that's 4-3 overall, a team in Benjamin Russell that's 5-2 overall, but they're both 3-1 in region play, and that's all that matters going into this one. You look at Benjamin Russell last week, we saw them dominate Pelham in that game, and a lot of that was simply in the passing game. That was a game where Benjamin Russell came out, made some big-time plays in the passing game, and Pelham just struggled to stop them, especially in the second half. So when you look at this matchup, as they now take on Briarwood, what do you look at as the biggest key for the Lions if they want to be able to pick up a win and keep those hopes of a 2 seed alive here in region play?
Well, if you're looking mainly from the Pelham game, it's going to be stopping Malcolm Simmons. 3 touchdowns, 2 2-point conversions, absolutely monster night for the Auburn commit last week, and he was easily the biggest star on that field last week for Benjamin Russell, and so chief among them is going to be stopping that Benjamin Russell passing attack. It's something that we saw kill Pelham in a lot of the game last week, and I think that Briarwood has the weapons both on secondary and pass coverage and within the pass rush to blow up plays even before they start. So I think that they're very well equipped for this. I think, in my opinion, it's going to be a little bit similar to the Helena game, where if they can force some turnovers, but instead of the Helena game, keep it clean on their own end on offense, I think that we could really see Briarwood have a very solid chance to come out here and not just compete well, but potentially grab a win.
Yeah, I think that the defense is a huge key. If they come out and play well defensively, and it starts with Malcolm Simmons. He had a huge night against Pelham and just seemed unstoppable, to be honest with you. And then Pelham, in that first half, was able to battle. They found themselves in an early hole, and they battled back and made it a close game going into the half, but then they just couldn't find it in the second half. The offense couldn't move the ball enough. They were putting themselves in bad situations on 3rd and 4th and long multiple times throughout the night. Briarwood's best chance to win this game, defense, come out on your home field, play a strong game, keep it lower scoring, and then have your offense continue to build off of what we've seen the last couple of weeks, and that's the balance. This is an offense that's become much more balanced on that side of the ball with Josh Thompson at quarterback. You look at Cooper Higgins, a guy that can run the ball. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. And then they've got some receivers who have stepped up as well, and Sawyer Click, Nick McNulty, and a few others. So it's an offense that has more weapons, more balance than it has in a few years, and typically one that's led by a very good offensive line as well. So if they can come out and have those sustained drives, play ahead of the chains, and put themselves in 2nd and short, 3rd and short situations, You do that with the defense that they have, that's got to be something that's a big-time benefit for them in this game. Is that something you see them doing? Do you see them being able to do enough against a Benjamin Russell team that I think's gotten better as the season's gone along as well, for Briarwood to be able to pick up a win?
I think it's definitely going to have to come down to that offense strategy, like you said. We know that Briarwood really likes to control the game through the running game, and that's really going to be a great success for them in this game, because they can get those shorter downs and not only pick up the shorter passing plays, but we've seen them have big pass play potential in that passing game as well. Just a very good, diverse attack that I think will really cause Benjamin Russell some problems. Not really too much of one dimension that they have to stop. You have to worry about every single aspect of this Briarwood offense. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be Briarwood's defense that comes out and makes a difference. I think they're going to make enough stops throughout the game, get Benjamin Russell's offense off the field, and then get their own offense onto the field, get rid of some of the clock there, and just really prevail in a pretty big defensive battle. It's going to be a close one. I've been going back and forth about this, but I have confidence in Briarwood to get the win.
Yeah, it's and you have a right to go back and forth in this one. It's going to be a very tough game, and both playing their best football of the year, both 4-1 in their last 5 games now, and Briarwood's only loss in that stretch is to region-leading Helena by 4 points in a game that they led throughout that matchup as well. You look at the other side of that, and Benjamin Russell also playing well. They've won 3 in a row, 4-1 in their last 5. So both of them, they've seemed to put it together at the right time of the year, which means this is going to be a great football game between these two teams. But the big battle is going to be Briarwood's defense, which you touched on earlier, against that Benjamin Russell offense. Those are the two best sides of the ball for each of these teams. Right now, Benjamin Russell scoring 36.6 points per game, Briarwood giving up 18.1 points per game. You flip that around, Benjamin Russell's defense is also playing really well this season. It's a defense giving up just 20.1 points per game, but Briarwood's offense right now scoring 20.7. That's about a 16-point difference on that side of the ball. So if Briarwood wants a chance, they've got to make this a lower scoring game, make it one where Benjamin Russell is kept to 21 or less in this matchup, then give your offense a chance to go out, make some plays with that balanced attack, long sustained drives where you're converting third and short that wears down that Benjamin Russell defense to be able to score enough points in this matchup to be able to walk away with a win. I think, like you, it's going to be a fantastic football game. Earlier in the year, both of these teams had a lot to work on. At this point in the year, they've both seemed to have it clicking right now. But I think Benjamin Russell's got just a slight bit more with a standout playmaker in Malcolm Simmons. I think that could be what makes the difference at the end of the night. It's one of those big games in the 6A classification that we need to see Briarwood win. And if they can prove it this week against Benjamin Russell, their chances against Homewood, they skyrocket. They go through the roof next week, but need to see them prove it this week. I want to see that balanced offensive attack come out, make some plays. If they can do that, they'll win this football game paired with the defense, but I need to see it proved against a very good Benjamin Russell football team on both sides of the ball. So, Andrew, you've got Briarwood in this one. I've got Benjamin Russell in a tight game, but I do think Briarwood going to have their chances late to be able to win this game. It's just a matter of making that determining factor here in the fourth quarter. It's going to be a great night for high school football here on Friday night at Briarwood Christian School in our game of the week. Neither one of us can wait to see how it unfolds, and I know you all can't either, so we'll see what happens here at Briarwood on Friday night. The Spain Park Jaguars did exactly what they needed to last week in a win over the Chelsea Hornets, a game that was tighter than it probably should have been for 3/4 of that matchup, and that's a testament to what Chelsea was able to do against the Jaguars, a tie game late in that football game. But Spain Park, Andrew, a game that you were at, able to make those plays late in the fourth quarter that ultimately allowed them to pull away for a 38-21 victory. They keep their playoff hopes alive, and right now the playoff hopes are slim. They've got to win out, and then they've got to have some help from the likes of the other 3 teams battling for the playoffs in this region with Hewitt-Trussville, a game they're going to have this week, as well as Hoover and Vestavia. So we'll have a much clearer picture of Spain Park's playoff picture after this Friday night, but first, they've got to win this game. They've got to be able to beat Hewitt in this matchup at Hewitt-Trussville. And, Andrew, you saw the Spain Park team last week. Well, most of the state, at least the Birmingham metro area, was put on notice by Hewitt bouncing back in a big way against Vestavia Hills, a game that they ended up winning 55-27, and it blew my mind. On Twitter, I tweeted about it. It was mind-boggling to me. Vestavia was the second-best team in this region, in my opinion, this year, and largely because of their defense. That was one of the best defenses in the state going into that game, and Hewitt just runs out there and scores 55 points. So we know they enter this matchup, I think, a little bit angry. You just mentioned that to me a few minutes ago. After that Thompson loss, they were looking to bounce back and prove the kind of football team that they are, but now they're also a confident, angry group that's looking to get back into the postseason and really get another shot at Thompson, I think, is their ultimate goal because of the talent that they have. So you've got an angry, determined, and confident group in Hewitt-Trussville, and then you've got Spain Park, who since the bye week, which is the week that they were pointing to, they were going to get healthy, they were going to come back in the second half of the season and put together a run, and all they've done is win 35-14 over Tuscaloosa County, 38-21 over Chelsea. So this is a team that's finally clicking, and it's got all of its playmakers back and healthy. So you saw this Spain Park team last week. What is it that they did in the fourth quarter that ultimately made the difference, and is that something that can carry into this game against Hewitt-Trussville for them to be able to pick up a huge and must-win road situation game?
I think obviously the teams were pretty deadlocked through the first three quarters, and it was really kind of unclear whether Spain Park was going to come out and get the win in the end. But to their credit, I think the two things that really worked out for them were that big pick by Jamari Mosley and what they were able to do in response on the offense, as well as on the other end, clean up some of the mistakes that dominated the first three quarters of this game. There were a lot of back-breaking penalties for Spain Park, including a couple of personal fouls that really kept Chelsea drives going and really enabled them to go and attack this Jaguars defense and make some pretty big plays in the process. And that was something that Coach Vikakis came out and said in the post-game that they needed to go out and work on, is being more disciplined, cleaning up those mistakes. I expect that because he said that in that way that he did, very frank manner, owning up to his own part of it, while also putting enough on the players as well. I think they're going to fix that this week, and I don't think that's going to be as much of an issue going forward. So I think that this is a Spain Park team that, like you said, with those back-to-back wins, they're starting to find their stride, but Hewitt is finding a different stride altogether. Just that win over Vestavia and the way that they did it, it was incredible what they did. They came out and made a statement, not only to go and try and grab that 2 seed now that they have the tiebreaker over Vestavia, but the way that they did it is a way where they can potentially catapult themselves into a Final Four berth. That it was that big of a win and that big of a statement over Vestavia Hills. So I think that ultimately, while Spain Park, this is probably one of the best times for them to face a team like Hewitt, it's the wrong time for anybody to be facing the Hewitt-Trussville Huskies at this point in the season.
Yeah, and you look at these two teams on paper a lot closer than you may think. This is a Hewitt offense that typically is high-powered. They've shown flashes of that so far this season. Just a shade under 40 points per game, scoring 38.6. But Spain Park really not that far off. They're scoring right around 30 points per game this season. So this is a team that when they've been healthy with both of the Shanks brothers, with Reggie Jackson in addition to Jonathan Bibbs, all out there with Brock Bradley at quarterback, this is a team that's really balanced, dangerous. They make you cover the entire field, and that's where they are right now. So this offense is in as good a shape as it's been since early in the season. They've got confidence, and that's a big benefit because this defense is really good. Both defenses playing some good football this season, and we've seen both also be susceptible at times to the best teams in the region. But Hewitt giving up 20.4 points per game, Spain Park exactly 1 point more than that at 21.4 points per game. So you've got two good defenses. I think Spain Park's defense actually going to play well in this game, but ultimately it comes down to the health of this offense, and can that Spain Park offense be balanced enough, make enough plays in this game to hang with Hewitt-Trussville? Because if you leave your defense on the field the entire night against an offense like this, it's going to turn into a struggle. And while it may be close for a while, the Huskies are going to be able to pull away in the second half if that's the case. So, Andrew, can the offense do enough in this game for Spain Park to be able to walk away with the win? You just talked about how nobody really wants to face Hewitt-Trussville right now. Can Spain Park come away with a win in this matchup on the road and keep their playoff hopes alive.
I think they might have enough firepower to keep it close, but I just don't see them coming out and winning it. I think that obviously what we've seen over the past couple weeks, and especially at the beginning of the season as well when they were healthy, was a Spain Park attack that can hurt you in a lot of different ways, make big plays on the ground and in the air while also controlling the ball on offense and just really being able to go out and do what they need to do to win and win convincingly. Last week, a little less convincing against Chelsea, but still able to come up late. I think if they would have handled Chelsea in a bit of a more decisive way, I would have had some more confidence for Spain Park going into this game. But right now, I just think that Hewitt's on a different level right now. Obviously, Spain Park, great start to the season. As Coach Vakakis noted post-game, this is the first time they've been over 500 through 7 games since 2017, which was their last playoff appearance. And for Spain Park, you still have to feel good about the progress that you're making, but there's still just a gap between them and the top of the region, and I think that's going to show this week.
Yeah, and that's you made the point that I was going to make, and that's that regardless of the situation, Spain Park is drastically improved from what they've been the last few years. They're definitely heading in the right direction. You see that sense of edge and urgency from this team with Vakakis now leading the way. It's just a different physical group that can make some of those big-time plays, and they've got the athletic playmakers that they need. And off camera last week, I told you Spain Park was going to pull this upset before seeing what happened on the field last week. I do still think that they keep this game close. I thought Spain Park would be a playoff team this year, just judging on what I saw coming into the season. But ultimately, I got to believe in Hewitt-Trussville after what I saw last week. And it could be that game, Vestavia just didn't have it that night, and Hewitt could come out flat this week after that big win. But at the end of the day, when you put up 55 points on a defense like what Vestavia Hills has, you got to feel good about your chances and their chances moving in to this big matchup here. I do think Spain Park playing for their season basically with the playoff spot still on the line. They've got to win this week. They've got to win next week. If they win this one, very good chance that Spain Park's going to have a shot at the playoffs in that final week of the region, and they've got that balance offensively to do it. They've just got to come out and make those plays on the offensive side, because I do think that their defense is going to play better than what we saw from Vestavia Hills last week. But you've got to pair that with some offensive progression. We'll see if they're able to make enough plays. But right now, Hewitt coming off of that win against Vestavia Hills, I think they've just got too much firepower offensively right now. In the second half, if it's a 21-20 game like we saw with Chelsea last week, I feel more comfortable in Hewitt making those fourth quarter plays right now than I do from Spain Park. Now, that could change here on Friday night as Spain Park actually takes the field. If Spain Park can hold a team to 20 or less, likely going to win, because this is a team that offensively doing enough right now to be able to win a game like that. And that's what they're going to be shooting for, a very physical, hard-fought, lower-scoring matchup here. If they can do it, they've got a great shot to pick up a win in an upset of Hewitt-Trussville, but going to have to put it all together at the right time of the season. We'll see if the Spain Park Jaguars can walk away with the upset of the Huskies and keep their playoff hopes alive. The Thompson Warriors playing as confident as they have all season. Since that Clay Chalkville loss, they've bounced back in dominant fashion the past 2 weeks with wins against Hewitt-Trussville and a dominant effort there, and then another big-time showing against Oak Mountain and a 60-point win this past Friday night as well. And everything just clicking right now. Defense playing well. Offense really not having to do many special things. They're just making big-time plays and explosive plays at that. So this is a team that's won 4 straight state championships. With a win this week, can lock up the region championship against Tuscaloosa County. And Andrew, it seems like they're getting the Wildcats at the perfect time. This is a Tuscaloosa County team that opened the season 4-1, looked improved this year, but now struggling. They've lost a couple in a row, and that's not what you want confidence-wise going into a matchup against a team as dominant as Thompson has been. So when you look at that, they've lost the last two, 35-14 and 37-10 to the 2 Hoover schools, Spain Park and Hoover, respectively, in those matchups. It's tough to see. If you've got those 2 teams scoring 30-plus, giving up 14 or less, it's tough to see Tuscaloosa County being able to come out, score enough points, more than 14 really, but also to be able to stop this dynamic Thompson offense going into this matchup.
Definitely, and they looked Tuscaloosa County, to their credit, looked very improved at the start of the season. We saw them pretty early on against teams like Chelsea just be able to be a very good both offensive and defensive team, and especially on the offense, two of their strengths being a pretty good run game and some good downfield passing, but Thompson has big weapons to counter both of that. Pass rush, they have Jaden Davison, Tyler Hicks, and then pass coverage, Anquan Fagans and Caleb Harris. Those have been effectively the neutralizers over on defense, making the big plays that they need in order to go and grab those wins. You see Peyton Lewis in there as well. This is a very good Thompson defense that I think is going to cause Tuscaloosa County a lot of problems, as they're expected to. Thompson should be heavily favored after what they've done the last couple of weeks against Hewitt-Trussville, against Oak Mountain, really starting to find their stride on offense, and this is really honestly the best form of the season that I've seen the Thompson Warriors in. And that bodes well coming in for the playoffs, and that bodes well right now as they're trying to win their first region title since 2020. Obviously a much easier path now than they've had in years past, having to play effectively a region title game against Hoover at the end. Now, easier, clearer path to victory. Just win here against Tuscaloosa County, and it's yours going into the final week at Hoover. So I think that Thompson is really going to come out here motivated, knowing the goal in front of them. Obviously, you could come into a team like Tuscaloosa County and believe that you're going to win and just kind of fall apart from there. But with the way we saw them come out against Oak Mountain on the road last week, I think that pretty much shows me all that I need to see. I think that Thompson comes out, wins big, gets that silverware, moves on to the next goal.
Yeah, this is a Thompson team that since that Clay Chalkville game, I think that Clay Chalkville game was the best thing to happen to them. Lose that game in a tight battle, but it really woke them up in the sense that they played with a very good football team, and they probably feel like they should have won that game. They were just inconsistent. It was quarter for quarter in that one as those two teams traded momentum. Since then, Thompson's had 2 great weeks of practice the last couple of weeks. They dominate Hewitt-Trussville, a very good football team as we've seen, and then dominate Oak Mountain easily last week with the starters not having to do much in that football game. Team's playing too good right now. I think the bigger one is going to be next week against Hoover. If they lock up the region championship this week, you really don't want to go into the postseason with a sour taste, even though it's worked out the last couple of years as well, going on to a state championship. But I think that's going to be the game to watch for the Thompson Warriors as they close out the regular season against Hoover next week, simply because I think that they win the region championship this week against Tuscaloosa County. Assuming they stay focused, they have another good week of practice, this is a game where they should be able to pull away with how good they're playing. Scoring 43.7, giving up 12.4. Tough to see Tuscaloosa County with the 2 outcomes we've seen the last couple of weeks being able to hang with Thompson in this game. So expect the Warriors to walk away victorious against the Wildcats at home this Friday night and lock up our region championship. Andrew, the Chelsea Hornets, they've kind of shown flashes so far this season. We saw it again last week against Spain Park, a game that you were at. They ultimately lose that one 38-21, but that game was 21-21 late. They hung with the Jags, who are a very physical group there this season, and earlier this year they also played close with Vestavia Hills, a game that ended up being 45-21 in that one, but able to do some positive things offensively in a couple of those matchups against very good physical defensive football teams. Now they get the Hoover Buccaneers, and we've talked about how it's one of the worst Hoover teams in more than 20 years, but they seem to have righted the ship, and to me, this doesn't feel like the time that you want to play Hoover if you're Chelsea, unless they just somehow think, okay, we've gotten it fixed now, and then fall back into what we've seen from Hoover so far early this season. But going into this matchup, you look at Chelsea and you look at Hoover. These are two teams that have had their different struggles. Chelsea 1-4 in region play, 2-6 overall, so just 2 wins on the season. Hoover right now sitting at 3-5 overall, so struggling also overall this season, but they seem to have righted the ship in region play at 3-2 in the region. So Hoover playing well right now, 62-14 against Oak Mountain, 37-10 over Tuscaloosa County the last couple of weeks. That defense playing well, the offense also has some momentum at this point in the season now. So if you're Chelsea, What is it? You've seen them a couple times this year. You saw them last week against Spain Park. So what do the Hornets need to do to be able to go up against Hoover this week in a game that's going to be difficult and be able to walk away with a win?
I think it's to take advantage of a lot of the improvements that I've seen from the 2 times that I've seen Chelsea play in person this season. Obviously the first time against Helena, just a dominant Helena Huskies team and a Chelsea team that was really starting to figure themselves out this season. But now I think that we've really seen them into more of a complete team. Yes, they did take advantage of a lot of Spain Park errors last week, but to their credit, I think that the offense looked a lot more complete, a lot less reliant on Emerson Russell. He did play and have some impact in the game, but it was a lot more of a passing attack and some work from Carter Dotson as well in that run game as well. Scored 2 rushing touchdowns close to the goal line, situations you'd normally give to Russell, but Dotson did very well in taking advantage of those situations. And then on defense, getting off the field quick, forcing punts, even a fumble in some very short drives that let them get back on the field and continue to run and chew the clock. I think that was really what Chelsea was able to do well, is what they were able to limit what Spain Park was able to do on the field for the first 3 quarters and come out there and really give themselves a great chance to win that game. And I think that they're going to need something similar this week. Just really come out and try to demoralize Hoover and derail what has been a great stretch of momentum for them. 2 big wins against Oak Mountain and Tuscaloosa County in big ways. And they've got a lot of the confidence back that they lost in that first opening stretch of the season. I think a lot of their mojo is starting to come back. I think that Chelsea, while they're coming in as arguably their best and most complete form of the season, I think that Hoover just has another gear this week, kind of like how we talked about with Hewitt and Spain Park earlier in the show. These are both 2 teams that are finding the best versions of themselves right now, but Hoover probably has the edge here.
Yeah, Hoover right now just a little bit better on both sides of the football, but Emerson Russell, I think, healthy again, or as healthy as he can be at this point in the season. He's a guy that went over 100 yards again last week. He keeps you in these kind of games, and they're starting to get a little bit more confidence, and they've had it at times. They've just got to put it together consistently with the passing game. Carter Dotson, Jackson Shuttlesworth, several of those guys have shown flashes over the past few weeks against some very good defenses. Maybe they can put it all together in this game. If they have that balanced attack, running the football and throwing the football, this is as susceptible as Hoover has been in a long time, and they've got to have that perfect game if you're Chelsea on Friday night going in to this matchup. But right now, Hoover's just got too much confidence, too much momentum. It's a team that's scoring about 8 points per game more on the offensive side of the football, giving up about 10 points per game less on the defensive side of the football than Chelsea, and that's the key to me. Chelsea giving up 35.5 points per game. Hoover seemingly has improved on offense the past couple of weeks. I think that's the big difference in this game. If Chelsea's defense can come out and have its best game of the season, they're going to be right in this game come the fourth quarter again, like they were last week against Spain Park. But it starts with that defense, and so far this season they've shown some flashes, and then you get to that third or fourth quarter, and they've just exerted so much energy and effort against a physical 7A team, and it just kind of wears them down at the end of the night. So if they can come out and really play a physical game from start to finish in this matchup against Hoover, that's going to be their best chance to be able to pick up a win, because what that does is it gives Emerson Russell more opportunities offensively, and it also allows that passing attack to try to grow some confidence and slowly progress throughout this football game as well. But ultimately, Hoover, like you said, Andrew, just in too good of a situation right now, the better football team over the past few weeks. They've got the momentum. I expect Hoover also to be able to walk away with a win in this big region showdown. With all these playoff situations, all these playoff hopes up in the air, Hoover knows what's at stake the rest of the year, and I think they're going to come out and play like that in this matchup. The Oak Mountain Eagles struggled last week in a 60-point loss to the Thompson Warriors, a game in which Thompson just jumped out of the gate, scored 21 points in the first 3 minutes of that football game, doing it in all facets of the game as well. Offense playing well. They had a fumble that they took into the end zone there, and special teams played well. So everything clicking for Thompson in that game last week. Oak Mountain just didn't have any momentum at all, and they're taking on one of the best teams in the state, so it's really not a surprise in that situation. But now they get Vestavia Hills, and like I told you earlier in the show, In that loss to Hewitt-Trussville, they get dominated. They get blown out against the Huskies, and I thought Vestavia was the second-best team in the region this year. Well, guess what? Now they're going to be angry. They're going to be determined to bounce back and show that was a fluke. That's not who they are. This is a team that still wants to try to get that 2 seed in this region, still a chance at that, but really get that momentum back going toward the postseason. So if you're Oak Mountain, I think this is the worst possible time that you could face a Vestavia defense that's giving up 17.4 points per game. The Eagles, they've lost 7 in a row since an 8-point win against Northridge to open the season. So, Andrew, you look at that, you look at the struggles for Oak Mountain offensively this year going up against this defense. Is there anything the Eagles can do going into this game to be able to pick up a win and really a big upset here against Vestavia Hills?
I really don't think so, because even if Oak Mountain's defense is able to somehow hold this Vestavia Hills offense, I think this defense is just going to come out way too motivated, and there's way too much of a talent gap between Vestavia's defense and what we've seen from Oak Mountain this season. I think that it's a very dangerous defensive attack from Vestavia, and I think that really makes a difference here. They could come out one or two ways. They could come out extremely flat and not motivated after getting demoralized by Hewitt, quite frankly, or they could just come in here really angry, really motivated, and just be an absolute buzzsaw of a team running into Oak Mountain, which has fallen pretty susceptible to those buzzsaw-type offenses and defenses. I think it's going to be a lot of the latter. I think it's going to be too much for Oak Mountain to handle on both fronts. I have Vestavia winning this.
Yeah, you look at that. That's got to be the big thing. If Vestavia does come in flat off of that loss, they just don't have the confidence right now. They're trying to figure out who they are with just a couple of weeks left in the regular season. That's a huge benefit to Oak Mountain and gives Oak Mountain a chance in this game because their defense against the type of offense that Vestavia Hills is, there are ways to limit the scoring that the Rebels will put up, and that's got to be the key for Oak Mountain. We know that Vestavia's defense is talented. Even though they gave up 55 last week, they are a talented group. I think that group is going to come out determined in this one. It's a matter of can the offense for Vestavia bounce back as well and come out just as confident. If they don't, then Oak Mountain's defense could come in with a different edge, make this game closer than a lot of people think for a while, but ultimately they've got to be able to score points, and I just don't see how they're going to do that in this matchup. It's a Vestavia defense that has given up 21 or less in all but that game last week where they gave up 55 to Hewitt-Trussville, and they've given up 10 or less in 4 of 7 so far this season. So playing too well on that side of the football, and you're going up against an Oak Mountain offense that's scoring just 15 points per game to this point in the season. Ultimately, Oak Mountain's defense can come out, keep them in this game, but just don't think that the offense will be able to have enough firepower against that talented Vestavia defense. The Helena Huskies enter this matchup against the Calera Eagles off a bye week, a chance to claim the region championship. If they pick up a win, if Briarwood beats Benjamin Russell right here on this field behind us, then Helena's going to claim the region championship at the end of Friday night. And the Huskies playing some really good football right now. They were tested in that game against Briarwood, fell behind. Second time this year that they've really been tested. We saw them fall behind against Homewood earlier in the year and battle back from a double-digit deficit there. And they do it against Briarwood as well. They fall behind in that one at the half. They come out, they play well in the second half, as they usually do, and walk away with a 28-24 victory, go into the bye week 7-0, and it's not just what this team's doing to be successful, it's that they're doing it on both sides of the football. The defense is playing some great football so far this season, but this is an offense that traditionally is not going to just put up a ton of points. Well, they're scoring 40 points per game right now, 40.7 points per game on the offensive side of the football. We've seen what Jordan Washington can do taking over football games. We've seen a couple of running backs behind that as well, and then you've got Carson Acker at quarterback and Hunter Hill out at receiver. Now, Torrey Ward was in a sling against Briarwood. He did not play that football game. I'm assuming he's probably going to be out at least this week, if not next week, and we see him again in the postseason. That's somebody that can help spread the field and make defenses guard both sides when it comes to that receiver position. So that may be a factor next week against Benjamin Russell. This week, I'm not too worried about it. Taking on a Calera team that's just struggled to this point in the season, Andrew, and last year, this game a big one. This is the one that kept Helena out of the playoffs a season ago. Now a chance to win a region championship. Talk about that aspect of this football game and what you expect the outcome to be between Helena and Calera on Friday night.
Definitely, and for a game that went so much last season with these two teams coming in at fairly even stretches, Calera coming in with a good head of momentum going into this game last season, and this really being the beginning of the end for Helena, even though they started really well last season. But Helena just an even better start this season, and Calera absolutely hasn't really found that momentum this season. Winless versus an undefeated Helena team couldn't be in more different spots this year, and now Helena has a chance to lock up that region title, even though this time last year they were really trying to fight to be in the playoffs. That's just an absolute credit to what this Helena team has been this year. Really just complete in the running game, in the passing attack, defense. Every single aspect of this team has been clicking. Really, the only time that they've really been susceptible to losses is when they've gotten into themselves. In that Briarwood game, becoming a little bit of their own worst enemy at times with some of those turnovers and everything, but being able to bounce back. They've not only just won every game, they've won every game in pretty much every way that you could ask. Like, this Helena team has pretty much answered every test up to this point, and they'll have another big one next week against Ben Russell. If for some reason they don't wrap up business here, or Ben Russell takes down Briarwood, that could be a region championship game. But now it's just all about taking care of the business that's in front of you. It's going to be a goal that Richie Busby stresses to his team, especially given a direct comparison to this game last season. And I think that's going to be the difference. They're going to come out here motivated, take care of their end of the bargain against Calera in a big way, and then we'll wait and see what happens back on this field here at Briarwood Christian.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing here is Helena can't get caught looking ahead to that matchup with Benjamin Russell because there's a chance they can lock up a region championship this week. But that's the big way that they lose this game or this game's close is if they don't come out focused and ready to take care of business. But I don't think that's going to be a problem. Just talking with Coach Busby after that game against Briarwood, he knows that they lost this game last year. The team knows that they lost this game last year, and they know what it did to them. And ultimately missing the postseason. It's an important game for them. And they're going to come out, I think, ready, determined, and focused in this matchup against a Calera team that's just struggled defensively and offensively this year. Like you said, sitting at 0-7 on the year, these two teams on opposite ends of the spectrum right now. Calera coming off a 38-0 loss against Briarwood last week. They did some positive things at times in that game defensively, but ultimately the offense just doesn't have the firepower this year that they need and that they've had the last couple of years, especially with receivers in Braylon Farrington and Kobe Prentice just making such a difference on that offensive side of the football with their athleticism and speed. They replaced so much talent on both sides of the football this year. Lost their top playmakers offensively, lost their top 3 or 4 tacklers on the defensive side. Just a young football team that's taking on some really good teams and some of the best in the Birmingham metro area in Class 6A Region 3. And when you look at this one, right now, this is a Calera team scoring 8.7 points per game. They've scored 6 or less in their last 3 games, and now they get a Helena defense that's giving up just 13.1 points per game. Helena defensively too much, and the offense with Jordan Washington, I just don't see how Calera's defense can stop Jordan Washington right now the way he's playing, and if you do, they've got 2 others right behind him that are going to be ready to step in and really just wear you down as the game goes along. So with that, I think Helena going to be able to go out, take care of business. I think a great chance for them to lock up a region championship as well, because I don't think it would surprise either of us if Briarwood wins this game against Benjamin Russell as well. So we'll see how it all unfolds on Friday night, but the Helena Huskies, at the least, a chance to lock up home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs with one of those top 2 seeds in Class 6A Region 3. It's a must-win situation for the Pelham Panthers as they hit the road to take on the Homewood Patriots in what's a great rivalry now between these two teams and also now as region teams as well. And it's a big one. You look at these two teams overall, both of them sitting at 4-3 on the season, but Homewood sitting at 3-1 in region play, Pelham 1-3 in region play. So opposite ends of the spectrum there when it comes to their region records. And Pelham entering off of a difficult showing last week against Benjamin Russell, a game in which they were able to battle hard in the first half to stay in that game and then just came out flat in the second half, couldn't move the ball enough offensively, and at the end of the night, that was too much for their defense against a very talented Benjamin Russell offense that was able to pull away for a 41-14 victory. Now Pelham, they've got to win this week. They've got to win next week if they want a shot at the playoffs this season, and it's going to be a tall task when you look at what they've got ahead, but this is a great opportunity for them to get a ton of confidence against a good football team in Homewood, and I think we both feel like this is a toss-up right now going into this matchup. So, Andrew, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this matchup, what you expect from these two teams, and who you think is going to walk away victorious at the end of the night.
Yeah, and for starters, it's just amazing how much this matchup has changed over the years. Last year, we really saw this as the top two teams within the region battling it out. Now one's barely in Homewood and one's barely out in Pelham, both still with good chances to make the playoffs. If Homewood gets a win here, easier game next week against Chilton County. Still need some help, but you like their chances going into that matchup. But Homewood has just honestly looked very good this season. Their only 3 losses so far to quality teams in John Carroll, Vestavia Hills, and Helena. Three of the best teams we've seen arguably in the Birmingham metro area this season. And I think that Homewood has really just proven themselves as a solid top 4 football team. But Pelham still has the chops to get in there as well. And I think really their best chance really is attacking the defense relentlessly, establishing the run, making the big plays, just that complete performance that we've needed to see for a while. It's those second halves that have really killed them against Benjamin Russell and Briarwood. They're going to need to limit that in this game against a team that's around the level of those other two teams, and they just really need to show up overall. They just need to come out, be motivated, be determined, and play their best brand of football. That's really what gets them the win in this.
So do you think that Pelham's going to be able to do enough? And to me, if they can get that run game established, they've shown some flashes in the passing game, but right now it just seems like so much of the offense rests on Clayton Maines' shoulders. So do you think Pelham has the firepower offensively? I think defense will play well, but offensively, can they come out and make enough plays against a very good Homewood defense?
Yeah, and that's really what I think is the edge here, because you see Homewood coming in here allowing 24.6 points per game versus an offense that scored 25.1 points per game. And what you really look at in some of these games for Homewood is they've let teams into the door that maybe shouldn't be in there, allowing 3 touchdowns against Calera, 13 points against Chilton County. It's a defense that has been able to do enough to win games and an offense coming in behind them. But against quality teams, we've really seen them be susceptible. And I think that Pelham's best chance is to come out here and attack that defense, get some points on the board, and trust in your defense to recover. But I think that it's going to be a difference in momentum here. Homewood has a lot coming in. Pelham doesn't have a lot. And I think that even though Pelham is going to come in hungry and motivated, I don't really see a way where this team doesn't under Coach Mike Vickery. But I think that at the end of the day, Homewood has too much going in their favor. They have the talent. They're just a little bit ahead of where I think Pelham is right now. Could it be a close game? Yes, I do really think that this will be a pretty good battle come Friday night, but I think ultimately Homewood's going to win, and that will ultimately eliminate Pelham from postseason contention.
Yep, and Andrew, you'll be at this one, so I think you'll get treated to a good football game, and the reason I think that is because of the defensive battle that we're going to see. I think both defenses going to come out and play well in this matchup. Pelham giving up 20.6 points per game, Homewood giving up 24.6 points per game, but this is a Homewood team, like you said. They just enter with too much confidence right now. They lost their first 3 games of the season, and we thought this region, again, was going to come down to Pelham, Helena, or Homewood this season, and Homewood gets off to that slow start, and you're like, well, I guess it's coming down to Pelham and Helena, and now we've seen Homewood bounce back with the stretch that they've had recently with 4 consecutive wins. They win 34-13 over Chilton County last week. So it's a team, when you look at that, that's gotten it right. They've started to figure things out at this point in the season. They've done it consistently over the last few weeks, and that's what we haven't seen from Pelham, is that consistency. They have a stretch where they play well, and then they kind of fall back into that same hole where they struggle again. But the big difference right here to me is that you've got a Homewood defense playing well enough right now and what they've been able to do, and you've got Pelham struggling to score enough points. They've scored 24 or less in 5 of 7 games so far this season. Homewood's given up 21 or less in 4 consecutive games. I think that's the difference at the end of the night. I think Pelham's defense is going to play well enough to make this a game, but I don't see their offense being able to get that extra edge that they need to get over the hump in this matchup. Now, if they can somehow find the big-time pass plays that we've seen from Clayton Maines in some of these games this year, it could be a little bit more entertaining. It could be a close game, and they could walk away with the win, but they also need more than just him running the football. They've got to find some running backs that can step up and make some big-time plays in the running game, and there's just too many question marks with that. Can they throw the ball down the field? Can they run the football, or is it just going to be Clayton Maines going out there and trying to make plays to the best of his ability? That's not what you want in a matchup against a good defense like this, because they'll make you pay. They'll hone in on that one player, and that can become the difference. Ultimately, I think that does become the difference, but if they can figure it out, Pelham going to have a chance to walk away with the win, keep their playoff hopes alive. They've got to have it, and like you said, Mike Vickery will get this team motivated. They will be ready to go, and I do think it's going to be a tight football game for 2 to 3 quarters. I think in that fourth quarter, though, Homewood going to make a couple of offensive plays to be able to pick up a win. But big rivalry game. You're going to get the best out of both of these teams in this matchup, as we do typically every week here in Class 6A Region 3. So it's going to be a lot of fun between Pelham and Homewood out at Homewood this Friday night. The Shelby County Wildcats coming off one of their biggest performances of the season this past week as they take on Selma, win that game 24-20. And Andrew, they make enough plays defensively late in that football game to pick up the win. Several interceptions. Bradley Horton able to capitalize, get in the end zone a couple of times, and they walk away in a hard-fought victory in that matchup against Selma, and now a chance to end region play with 2 consecutive wins, a battle for the 3 or the 4 seed in this region, as Shelby County is going to host Marbury on Friday night. The winner gets the 3 seed, the loser gets the 4 seed, but both go into the playoffs for Shelby County. You look at this matchup, though, and you got to feel good about what you were able to see last week, in particular from the defensive side of the football, going up against a Marbury team that scored 20 or less in 3 straight football games. They lost to the Selma team that Shelby County just beat. They lost that one 22-14. Shelby County wins that one 24-20. So you look at all those things, you put them together. This feels like it's one of Shelby County's best chances at a win. In addition to last week, a great opportunity for them to finish region play with 2 consecutive.
Yeah, and their schedule is set up perfectly. Just win the last 2 games and you're in. And I think that's exactly what Shelby County is going to come out here motivated to do, is just use that momentum from last week into playing this week with confidence and knowing that you can get the job done. If you come out and do like we've talked about all season, the route to victory for this team is get that defense to show up, make big plays and stops throughout the game, and then just have the offense make the plays that they need to in order to get the win. And the offense didn't just make the plays they needed to. They made some big plays overall. 2 late touchdowns from Bradley Horton really propelled this team to success. It's that run game that's finally coming in to check for Shelby County, and I expect the passing game to follow along as well, but it's the defense. 3 interceptions, big late sack from Eli Carlisle that also helped out as well, but it's that interception with less than a minute to go by Campbell Holt that really sealed the deal last week, and I think that gives them all the confidence in the world. There's a Marbury team that's really struggled so far this season and presents a great opportunity for Shelby County to ride that momentum to a win. I think that Coach Zeb Ellison is going to tell them one thing, and that is win and you're in, because that's as simple as it gets. That's what you need to do this week, and that should really be the only focus, is coming out and winning this football game.
Yeah, and so Shelby County, just to clarify, 3 seed or 4 seed, so they are in the playoffs regardless, but this is a chance for them to get some more momentum, win 2 consecutive games, to end region play, and go into the postseason with a little bit of confidence. If you're the 3 seed, much better opportunity for you in the opening round of the playoffs than if you're the 4 seed, to be able to walk away with the win in a 2-3 matchup instead of a 1-4 matchup. And Shelby County has every bit the talent to be able to walk away with the win in this matchup, playing well enough defensively this season, like you said, Andrew, and I think that's the ultimate key in this game, if the defense comes out and plays like it's capable of, this is a Marbury team that scored, like I said, 20 or less in 3 straight games, scoring just 17.5 points per game so far this season. So I don't see Marbury having enough offensive firepower against that Shelby County defense in this game, and Shelby County playing better consistently on the defensive side of the football, giving up 25.1 compared to Marbury giving up 36.9 points per game. I think Shelby County, this is their best chance to score a lot of points as well. I think their best chance at an all-around balanced performance from both sides of the football, and I think that they got that confidence last week that they needed to walk into this matchup, end region play on their home field with a win against Marbury, a game they lost 35-14 last year on the road. Now they're back home looking for revenge in a game that could get them the 3 seed. I think you're going to see that from the Wildcats. I think you see their best performance so far this season, and they do lock up that 3 seed here in this region. The Montevallo Bulldogs entering this matchup against Holt off one of their worst performances of the season, but not much to be said in that as they were taking on one of the best teams in the 4A classification and the region leader here in Bibb County as they fall last week 34-0 in a shutout. And defense still did enough in that game to be able to keep it close enough to have a chance at times, but ultimately just couldn't score enough points in a game against one of the best defenses that they're going to face this season. But now, Andrew, they get a matchup against Holt, and this is really the perfect opportunity for them to bounce back this week. Holt just not playing good football right now, 1-6 overall this season, 1-4 in the region. Montevallo on the other end, 5-2 overall, 3-2 in the region. And for Holt, it's been both sides of the ball. They can't score anything, and they've given up north of 40 points per game so far this season. So, Andrew, got to feel good that Montevallo is going to bounce back with a win here.
Definitely. We've seen the history in this matchup. It obviously favors Montevallo, and I think that overall, even despite the loss last week, I think Bibb County just that much of a better team than a lot of Class 4A this year. And I think that just overall, Montevallo is going to be able to take some lessons from that and be able to propel themselves against a Holt team that's really struggled this season and presents a great opportunity for a win, especially ahead of a tough final week for Montevallo coming in against American Christian to close out region play. I think what they're going to have to do here is come out, make the big plays that they need to, hold Holt on defense, and then just prepare themselves for a very big matchup coming in next week. There's still some big matchups around them involving Sipsey Valley, Hale County, and West Blockton, some of the teams that they'll be battling for the bottom spots in the region. But I think that they're just going to know that it's very simple. They just got to take care of business from here on out. They're in the driver's seat right now for those final 2 playoff spots, and a win here would greatly help them in the playoff picture as well.
Yeah, and technically still a chance, I believe, that Montevallo can get the 2 seed in this region if they win this one, if they win next week against American Christian Academy. That's going to be the tall task of those final 2 matchups. So big opportunity for the Bulldogs ahead these final 2 weeks. This week, though, just take care of business. I believe that they lock up a playoff spot with a win this week. Not 100% sure on that either, but we'll do the research, make sure that's included in our story on Friday night. A lot of scenarios taking place this week when it comes to the playoff picture, but Holt scoring just 4 points per game this year, giving up 43.6 points per game. Montevallo hasn't been lighting it up offensively. That's their struggle spot, their weak spot this season, but going up against a defense, giving up 43.5 points per game, got to feel good about their chances at this being their best offensive game of the season as well. And the defense giving up just 17.6 points per game. I don't know that Holt's going to be able to score a single point in this matchup. They've struggled so far this season, and I don't expect that they are able to find that rhythm all of a sudden against a talented defense like Montevallo is going to put out there. So expect the Bulldogs to walk away with another region win, improve to 4-2 in region play and 6-2 overall as they head into that final week of the region action with American Christian next week. The Vincent Yellow Jackets, they've taken care of business the last 2 weeks and did exactly what they needed to, bouncing back from those 2 losses, to B.B. Comer, to Childersburg, and now sitting in much better shape as they enter this big 2-game stretch, Andrew, taking on Isabella this week, Thorsby next week. Those 2 games going to be key in determining the final 3 seeds in this region. Those 3 teams battling from 2 to 4 in the seeding for this region, and Vincent's got to feel a lot better now that they've been able to bounce back with a couple of wins the last couple of weeks, and they're getting their two toughest games outside of Comer this season. Isabella this week, Thorsby next week. This one's going to be a tough challenge when you look at what these two teams have been able to do so far this season. Sitting at 6-2, the Vincent Yellow Jackets are 4-1 in the region. Isabella 5-2 and 3-2 in the region. Their two losses to Thorsby, to BB Comer. So two of those top four teams in this region, one going to win the region championship there in BB Comer. So for the Yellow Jackets in this matchup, Andrew, they've got to feel a little bit more confident. Are they going to walk away with a win, go into that final game of the season against Thorsby with a shot at the 2 seed?
Yeah, I think that Vincent has the edge really just because of the confidence that they've been able to get from the last couple wins. They've been without some key pieces or without as much impact from some of the key pieces in the past couple of weeks, but they've still been able to come out and take care of business against the teams that they need to, which I think bodes really well for them. I think that if they know that if they have a full strength team or close to a full strength team, that they can do well against most teams within this region. But Isabella is going to come in as motivated as Vincent, potentially even more given that it's at home as well. So I expect a great battle between these two teams. I think that what Vincent has an advantage in is that just what we've seen from the run game over the last few weeks, it's not only that they're able to make plays with that, it's that they're able to control the tempo through the run game. So I think that is going to be their key to victory here, is just demoralize them through the run game, take off some time, really just limit the impact that Isabella is able to have through lesser possessions, and just let the defense step up on Vincent's end as well. Going to be without Ray Albright for the rest of the season for Vincent, but I think there's still enough playmakers with the Vincent Yellow Jackets on that defensive side that they can really take care of business on that end. It's definitely going to be close, definitely going to be a battle. There's a lot of ways where Isabella could have success in this game. I think that in a close one, Vincent has the edge just from what we've seen this season.
Vincent's defense has got to play well in this matchup. That's been a key for them so far this season. They're giving up just 14 points per game on that side of the football, and they're taking on an Isabella offense that scored 40.3 points per game. So it's a talented Isabella offense. They're going to have to come out Vincent defensively and have one of those strong games. Entering off of a 41-7 win over Woodland, they've got that confidence back on both sides of the football now, and I think that's a huge key for them going into this matchup. Isabella coming in off of a very tight win against Ramburn, 29-25. That was a team Vincent beat 33-20 a few weeks back. So you look at that, you think Vincent's got a little bit of an edge, but it's on the road at Isabella, and that can make this a tough game, in addition to the fact that these two teams are very similar football teams in what we've seen so far this season. Vincent scoring 31.6 points per game, giving up 14. Isabella a little bit better offensively, scoring 40.3 points per game, but a little bit worse defensively, giving up 25 points per game. So I think this offense, they've got a lot of weapons on the offensive side of the football. They're starting to get better there, but they don't want to get back into that rhythm that we've seen at times in the past with Vincent, which is just score as much as you can and hope the defense can survive. Defense has got to continue to play well and play with the momentum and confidence that they've had in the past. And to me, that's the big key. Do they go into this game like, oh my gosh, this is a big game, we're nervous, we don't know if we can win this one? Or is it that Vincent team we saw last year, we saw early this year, and we've started to see flashes of again the last 2 weeks, that thinks we can beat anybody? We're coming off a historic season. This is a new program. We're going to go out and we're going to take care of business in this matchup on the road. We're the better team, and we've got the better players. If they go in with that attitude, they should win this matchup because they've got the playmakers offensively that have grown throughout the season, and they've got enough defensively and on a consistent basis defensively that makes them a good enough football team. It's going to be a tall task. I don't know which way it's going to go, to be honest with you, but I'm going to take Vincent in that edge of Coach Weatherford knows how to get this team in the right position to win a football game of this magnitude. And to me, that's going to be the big difference in this matchup. It's going to be a tight football game. I could see it going either way at the end of the night, but expect Vincent to have a chance in this one to pull off the victory. I think that game next week against Thorsby going to be a very, very good football game if the Yellow Jackets able to take care of business in this big region matchup. Now we jump into our AISA matchups. The Evangel Lightning going to be off this week, so nothing in the ACSC as they get set for their state run in the state playoffs and then a potential national championship as Evangel still sits as the number one team in 8-man play this season. But, Andrew, we've got two AISA games to talk about this week. We've got Cornerstone at Evangel Montgomery, and then we've got the Coosa Valley Rebels at Southern, and that's a Coosa Valley team, Andrew, that's coming off their first win of the season and by far their best performance overall on both sides of the football this season as they beat Abbeville 56-22, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, Coosa Valley's got an offensive explosion. Connor Steele, a big reason for that as they pick up that victory. Cornerstone also playing well, still perfect after a 72-6 win over Meadowview a week ago. So their offense also clicking as they now sit at 8-0 overall this season. And let's start with Cornerstone, then tell me about Coosa Valley in both of these matchups. But Cornerstone right now, the offense just playing lights out. Defense obviously coming off of a strong performance a week ago. And we talk about it with Evangel, our local Evangel, not the one that Cornerstone's playing this week, but how impressive it is at the 8-man level, what they do defensively and offensively. It's tough to play defense at the 8-man level. Well, Cornerstone's doing some similar stuff there. They're scoring 53 points per game right now, giving up 17 defensively, which is an impressive task. And now you're going up against a team that is struggling to stop anybody right now, giving up 38.5 points per game. When you look at what Cornerstone's doing offensively, you look at what Evangel Montgomery's doing defensively, you got to feel good at least about Cornerstone being able to outscore this Evangel Montgomery team.
Yeah, but I think it's that defense that's going to really make the difference for Cornerstone, being able to limit some of Evangel Montgomery's impact and taking care of the business on offense. It's really what we've seen Cornerstone do week in and week out. It's a big reason why they secured the region championship last week, and another big reason why they could secure an undefeated a regular season run this season, which would absolutely be a phenomenal accomplishment for the Cornerstone Chargers as they still have a chance to finish the regular season overall undefeated. But it was what we saw last week. That was not only a great way to wrap up your region championship, but a dominant way as well. School record for points and win margin in that win against Meadowview Christian. Yes, Meadowview was struggling coming into that game, but it was just another phenomenal performance from Cornerstone. Trademark from what we've seen from them this season. Another great night from Zeke Adams as well. I expect nothing but the same from Cornerstone this week. Obviously, Evangel Montgomery, defending state champions, so they have that for them, but Cornerstone looking every bit like they could be the state champions this year, and what a win this would mean for the Chargers as well. And then Coosa Valley, they finally have momentum again. We've been talking about all this season, when are we going to get that complete performance, more than just the flashes, but just overall get the offense to come together, get the defense to come together, and what a way to do it against Abbeville Christian. Obviously, Abbeville Christian coming in with their own struggles as well, but Coosa Valley coming in, 450 all-purpose yards, plus for Connor Steele, 2 picks from the Rebels defense, over 50 points on offense. It was just everything that you needed to see from Coosa Valley to get that win. Very happy for them to be able to get back in the win column for the first time in close to a year. But now it comes back to the region playoffs, and it's simple. They got to win to get in. They would hold the tiebreaker this week if they take care of business. But ultimately, obviously, this was a 34-0 defeat for them last season. I think that their defense, just from what we've seen this year, I think that they could be able to keep them in just a little bit more. If we get a similar performance from the offense, who knows? But I think that at the end of the day, Coosa Valley will fall in this matchup, which would effectively end their playoff hopes.
Yeah, I think that both of those games, I think you nailed. I think that Cornerstone going to be able to do enough on both sides of the ball to walk away with the win against Evangel Montgomery. That's a game they lost 42-30 last year, but this year more to play for at this point in the season. And I just think that you're going to see a Cornerstone team come out and play well, continue to build off of what they've done so far this season. Coosa Valley, we see that big boost that they get last week, but now they're going up against a Southern team that's coming off a 46-20 victory, and they're giving up just 17.3 points per game. I think you're going to see that offense of Coosa Valley take a step back to what we've seen much of the year. They're going to be better than what we've seen most of the year, but just a lot to ask for them to go up against a good defense and put up the same kind of numbers that we saw last week. I do think defense could keep them in this game like you do and make it tight for a while, but ultimately going to have those big offensive plays to be able to walk away with a win. Now it's time for our SCR Stars of the Week. We're going to hand out some stars here. We're going to name our top 4, the top 2 from each of us, and then hand out some honorable mention stars as well. And, Andrew, I'm going to start this week, then I'll jump over to you for your 2, and then we'll close it out, and I'll come back with the honorable mention list. But I want to start with A.J. Green at Thompson and taking on an Oak Mountain defense that's struggled so far this season. He's my first star of the week for what he was able to do in limited action on just 7 carries, had 173 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's big for his confidence moving forward, the confidence of this team and what they can do. It just shows how much balance they have offensively. And Michael Dujon, also a big night running the football, 2 touchdowns. I believe he had right around 75 to 80 yards as well. So this running game of Thompson, it starts with A.J. Green, and then you've got a good 1-2 punch with Dujon, going to be dangerous moving forward. And then the receiver at Spain Park, Reggie Jackson, who missed a couple of weeks. We talked about the health of Spain Park and how much better we expected them to be once they got healthy here in the second half of the season. Jonathan Bibbs, we know the talent that he has at receiver. Quarterback Brock Bradley, a young sophomore quarterback who we'll talk more about here in just a minute, is making some big-time plays, but Reggie Jackson back in this offense makes a difference for the Jaguars. He had 9 receptions, 95 yards, and a touchdown, and that really makes you spread the field and guard this entire Spain Park offense. That'll be a big-time thing to watch for against Hewitt-Trussville this week, and a big reason for that, is Andrew, is because of one of your stars of the week, so I'll jump over to you, let you give your 2, as you mentioned, your first star and what he was able to do for that Spain Park offense as well.
Yeah, my first star of the week goes to Dakari Shanks, running back for Spain Park. Him combined with his brother Derek, they were really able to control the running game, kind of alternated carries, and just really set the tempo for that offense to set up some big plays. But both Shanks brothers found the end zone, and it was Dakari who made an overall bigger impact on the stat sheet and within the game as well. 140 yards and 2 touchdowns off of 14 carries. You just really saw the offense be able to click with Dakari with the ball, just being able to gain some more of those big yardages, and just really have a couple of really good touchdowns as well, close to the goal line. I think ultimately it was the running game touchdowns that ultimately made the difference in that game. Dakari Shanks, a huge reason why. That's why he's my first star of the week. And the second star of the week, I've mentioned them 3 times. I mentioned them 2 times already. Might as well mention them a 3rd time, because 3 picks for the Shelby County defense. That's why they're my second star of the week. Interception from Campbell Holt, 28 seconds left to ice the win. And then 2 more interceptions coming elsewhere within that win as well. Sack from Eli Carlisle as well down the stretch, and just overall, it's not only just the limit that they've been able to, the impact that they've been able to limit on the offensive end as well from other teams thanks to that defense, but overall, it's just the turnovers and the big plays from the Wildcats that have really just propelled them to more of a success on that front, and we're ultimately able to get them back in the win column this week. So the Shelby County defense gets my second star of the week.
Yeah, and all 4 of those players/units ended up making a difference for their team, and that's the ultimate thing you want to see, is the effort that they give and the difference that they're able to make. And Dakari Shanks and Derek Shanks both going to be really good at the running back position for Spain Park down the stretch, and going to have both of them playing well. A.J. Green stepping up in a big spot. Also, Reggie Jackson, another Spain Park player in that Shelby County defense. If all these teams want to make the playoffs or improve their seeding in the playoffs, going to be big for them these next 2 weeks as well. So let's mention some honorable mention players here as well. And we just talked about one of them, Derek Shanks, 13 carries, 84 yards, and a touchdown. So you combine that with what Dakari was able to do, and the Shanks brothers well over 200 yards rushing there with 3 total touchdowns. Brock Bradley, also a very consistent night, 8 of 11, 2 touchdowns passing, about 170 yards, and no interceptions, which was key to me. very efficient and smart game for the sophomore quarterback with the weapons he has. He's going to continue to get better, not only this year, but by the time he's a junior, senior over the next couple years, going to be a dangerous player there for the Spain Park Jaguars. Emerson Russell at Chelsea, he also kept the Hornets in that game against Spain Park with a lot of what he was able to do, 119 yards on 28 carries. You know he's going to touch it about 20 to 25, maybe even 30 times a game, and he still goes over 100 yards. Just impressive what he's able to do each and every week for the Chelsea Hornets when he's out there. Josh Thompson at Briarwood, who I'll see here against Benjamin Russell in arguably his biggest game of the season. 12 of 14, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also ran for an additional 89 yards and a touchdown as he went for close to 250 all-purpose yards and 3 touchdowns in that win against Calera last week. And the Briarwood defense, starting with those 2 safeties, you can't not mention that, what they were able to do to start that game against Calera, 4-0 lead, all from the defense forcing back-to-back safeties. Very impressive there. And then to go on and pitch a shutout in that 38-0 win. They're going to need a very similar performance here on Friday night against Benjamin Russell. They'd love to start with 4 safeties in this one, if not more, if they could. And then Bradley Horton at Shelby County, you just mentioned him a second ago, 3 rushing touchdowns in the 24-20 win over Selma. They needed all 3 of them as he scored all 3 of the Wildcats as touchdowns in that 24-20 victory. And Kasem Fields, the Vincent quarterback, back up to his old tricks, 14 carries, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns running the football, 8 of 15 passing for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. Going to need every bit of that, if not more, these next couple of weeks in big matchups against Isabella and Thorsby, as well as the 3-headed, 4-headed monster they've really created at the running back position. Seems like anybody they put at running back has a strong chance to succeed. So a big couple of weeks coming up for the Vincent Yellow Jackets and a big couple of weeks for a lot of our teams here in Shelby County. This is the biggest week of the season to me. We know what's at stake for a lot of these teams. I think a lot of players going to step up. Expect a lot of names to be mentioned next week in our SCR Stars of the Week segment. That brings us to the end of this week's Shelby County High School football show, and as we do every week, we're going to give you a couple of things that we're looking forward to. So, Andrew, we know what's at stake for a lot of these teams. We know that Thompson can lock up a region championship. We know that Helena's got the potential to do so with a little help, a win and a little help from Briarwood here on this field behind us. And then a lot of teams battling for either playoff spots or seeding. So when you look at it all and it's all out there, what is it that has your eye that you're looking forward to the most this week here in Shelby County?
I'm looking forward to see a couple of teams that are on the outside looking in right now in Pelham and Spain Park. I want to see how they come in and respond from the last couple of weeks. Obviously, Spain Park riding a lot of momentum. Pelham, not really much so. I think that both these teams absolutely need to show up in must-win situations this week. 2 of the biggest games this week, Spain Park, Hewitt-Trussville, and Pelham against Homewood. I'm excited to see how both of those end up. I think there's a potential for both of them to be pretty close, but only because I see both of these teams really coming out, playing like their lives are on the line, and making the statements that they need to potentially go out and win the game. Both will be difficult. Both Homewood and Hewitt-Trussville are very tough teams, but who knows what's going to happen when your playoff lives are on the line. Yeah,
I think that Spain Park Hewitt game is one to still keep an eye on. Like I said, last week I felt like Spain Park would win, and even with what we saw a week ago on the football field, I still think Spain Park keeps this game close, and I think they've got a really good chance to walk away with a win, and that would be the win of the Vakakis era so far, and something this team can really, really build off of. Whether they make the playoffs this season or not, they could really build off of that going into next year. But for me, it's this game right here that I'm going to be covering on Friday night, Briarwood Benjamin Russell. This is a huge chance for Briarwood, for head coach Matthew Forrester, and this team to make a statement and really show a lot at the 6A level. This is a team that missed out on the playoffs last year for the first time in a long, long time. This year, they should make the playoffs, barring something crazy. And that's already a positive step in the right direction. But if you win this one, and then you can take down Homewood in back-to-back weeks and get the 2 seed in the 6A classification out of this Class 6A Region 3, if you can get a 2 seed in 6A as Briarwood, which has traditionally been a 5A team, that's a big step in the right direction for this program in what is arguably considered the toughest classification in the state. So a great opportunity for Briarwood right here on their home field on Friday night to take a step toward getting the 2 seed in Class 6A Region 3 and a home playoff game here in a few weeks. So big opportunity for them, big opportunity for Spain Park, Pelham, so many others this week as we close out region play over these final 2 weeks of the season. We'll see how it all unfolds. Can't wait to break it down all next week on the Shelby County High School football show. And, of course, this Friday night we'll have our Facebook Live as well, our pregame show from the 2 games. Pelham at Homewood is where Andrew will be. I'll be right here at Briarwood. Sure to be a fun time here as we get you primed for a big night of region play. But that's going to do it for this week's Shelby County High School football show. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and join us every week here on the Shelby County High School football show. We'll see you this Friday night. Enjoy your week.